Welcome to the GSD Golf Podcast. This is our kickoff show for season 4. We could not be more excited to be coming to you with our guest today to kick things off. But before we get into that, we got to give a big shout out to our partners. P3 Recruits, the official recruiting agency of the GSD Golf Podcast, helping to make today's episode possible, making that introduction between our guest and, of course, our friends at Where's Woody, who are founded in Cape Cod with a California vibe. You can get these custom-made zip-ups, hats, whatever you need, your athleisure wear, find it where'swoody.com. You can get outfitted with the very best swag in the game. Check them out, where'swoody.com. And of course, P3 Recruits, like I said, official recruiting agency of the GSD Golf Podcast for all of 2026. But we're back, season 4. We're really excited to be here. We're going to bring you bigger and better guests. We're going to talk about more important topics. Before we get into that, I have to remind you, check out gsdgolf.org. gsdgolf.org. We recently launched a one-stop shop for you to track your notes, to track your workouts, your fitness, your nutrition, to track your practice rounds, to track your mental game and your notes from your coaches, all in one place. Really easy, at a click of a button, gsdgolf.org. It's $2.99 a month. You can't go wrong. It's going to help you make sure you have all the information you need in one centralized location to make sure you're getting better at the game of golf. Now, speaking of getting better at the game of golf, GSD Golf Community, Season 4 kickoff show. No better guest to have on the show than someone that can paint a picture for you what it's like to go from a junior golfer to playing at the highest of levels in the game of golf, to coaching golf, to laying the groundwork for what it takes to get recruited and play at high levels. Please welcome to the GSD Golf Podcast to kick off season 4, head coach of Florida Southern College in Lakewood, Florida, Brian Richey. Brian Richey, welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I love that you have the golf channel on in the back. It's probably oozing out of you. You never get enough golf, probably, right? You probably, especially in Florida. I can only imagine 365 days a year you can play golf.
Yes. I mean, we actually are having a little bit of a cold snap right now, but it was mid 40s this morning, but it's already almost 60, so it's still sunny. If it's in the 50s and sunny, I'll be outside. So.
And we're tough times. If it's 60 and sunny here, it's tough times. We're up here in the Northeast. It's like 32 degrees, and I'm not going out there. I have my limits. I have my limits. Coach, you've had a busy year. You went from being named. You had the head coach at Florida Southern resigned late last year. You were tapped to be the interim. You went on to have a highly successful spring season, and then you get named head coach. How's that feel?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. You're right. It's been not quite a full year since I kind of stepped in as the interim. Kind of agreed to do that through the spring and kind of see how it went. And things went pretty well from both sides. And yeah, happy to be here. It's nice to step into a different chapter of my life and coach. And having it be where I played and a place I'm very familiar and it feels like home.
So we're going to get into a little bit of what it takes to play at the level at a school like Florida Southern. But before we do it, I mean, when you get tapped to be the interim and then you get the full-time job, as you come through the holiday season, you start looking for your spring season. You have to be looking at it a little bit differently now as the full-time head coach.
For sure. Jumping in as interim was much more of a, guys, I'm additive to you. I'm here to help. Yeah. There are already stuff going on. We had a bunch of injuries as well last spring, which was crazy for golf. We were down some guys. Nice to have the full roster ready to roll here coming into this spring. I've had a chance to, obviously we've had 3 freshmen starting in the fall, but just having the chance to get to know the returning guys even that much more about their games. And we had a solid fall. So yeah, we're ready to start qualifying here pretty soon. And I know the guys, I'm looking forward to see how they do. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
That's exciting way to kick off 2026. Coach, when we think about, you have a storied program, a highly accomplished Division II program. And I say that because as we've gone through this process, we hear a lot about the Division One, and everybody wants to play at Division One. And then we hear a lot of kids say, "Well, if I'm not playing Division One, I'm going to go Division Three." And almost the Division Two level sometimes feels like it gets skipped over in conversations. Is there a reason behind that, or is that just the nature of how college golf goes?
It all depends. It it all comes down to factors. There's multiple. It's location, weather, familiarity with certain programs, certain names and
Yeah,
brands. It really is specific to probably most kids individually. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we're in a unique spot. I feel like we're one of the top teams in Division Two, and there's not much difference, with skills with our roster. As you could probably plug most of the top 25 Division Two teams right into that 30 to 80 range on Division One, and you may not be able to tell if you took everybody's uniforms away. And that could same for be said for lower levels as well. I mean, it's amazing, really, just how good everyone is now at golf at the junior level, the college level, and the professional level. It's really the sport is in an incredible place with how gifted and how talented everybody is.
the future is really bright for the game of golf, especially as these kids continue to come up. I feel like we talk a lot about the pandemic, and coming out of the pandemic, the game was never more popular than it was. And to your point, I think the future's. Somebody told me one time these kids nowadays are speaking two and three languages on the golf course with the way that they can work a ball, the way they can putt, the way they can drive, the technology at their disposal, as opposed to 10 years ago it was a little bit different. Coach, you talked a little bit about the differences, or I would say the not the differences where the type of talent that you have at a high level Division two program could in many cases slip into a Division one program and play and not miss a beat. What are some of the differences between a Division one and Division two college golf program, or the player that has to fit into that program?
Yeah, I guess two parts to the question. The first part is, probably, when it comes down to where did they kind of play their golf getting into school? Where were they getting recruited? What kind of camps did they attend, or what are their relationships with, maybe alumni or some, just there's always connections to how to get your name. It's kind of like, that you're effectively marketing yourself. So it's
Mm-hmm.
how do you get your name in front of the right people to land in the right place? Yeah, and the beauty of this is, there's schools everywhere, and they match certain people's, kind of what they're desiring and what they're looking for. Second part of your question was more, I think, specific to the talent, and
Yep.
what was that part? It was more
Yeah,
about
so
talent.
when we talk about the
Yeah.
skill level, are we
Oh
looking
yeah.
at kids like from a scoring perspective? Is there certain skill sets that a Division two player, high level, I'm going to say high level Division two player needs to have that may correspond with that Division one level?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone now you're looking for kids that hopefully can hit it pretty far. Not that the college golf schedules have fully translated to longer golf courses, but if you're playing the same course as year after year, most schedules stay so relatively similar, and you keep adding players that hit it 10, 15, 20 yards farther than that just
Everybody
makes the
else.
game easier if they know how to control it. So you're certainly looking for kids who know how to hit the golf ball. And different coaches would probably look for different things. I'm looking for sort of the whole package, but ultimately, can you shoot the scores? That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to.
Let's talk about that. So you're obviously looking for the scores. You're looking for the distance off the tee. Um, what else is when you build a team? I'm assuming it goes into building a culture, building a program. Because golf rosters are so small, it could be one personality that could disrupt that whole narrative that you're trying to build. What else goes into that when you start to build a team and recruit a kid?
Yeah, you're recruiting the kid. My coach who I played for here always said kind of you're recruiting the family. You're looking at
Mm,
what's the support like. What when you meet the parents, or how many brothers and sisters are they? An athletic family? Are they focused on the right things? Do they just care about a transaction like, hey, just D1, D2, my kid's on the team, or are they fully invested in that kid having the best experience?
yeah.
There's a lot of factors that go into it. But yeah, you're exactly right. Division II, we don't have roster limits, but most teams are probably staying in that 10 to 13 range. Occasionally you might get more than that, but so we have a little bit bigger window than some of the Division I's will have now. But yeah, you're right. You're trying to. I'm trying to. We want kids that can play, obviously, but we are also want kids that we want to work with, that want to work with the kids that we have, and kind of work towards, improving this program. When they leave, leave it better than they found it. So,
talk to us, Coach. Talk to us about so GSD Golf community. We are on with Coach Brian Richey, head coach of Florida Southern, newly minted head coach you're probably used to that, but still. Coach, talk to us. You just mentioned the roster limits, and we talked a little bit in season 3 about the new NCAA rules and how they impacted the Division I schools. Obviously, there's probably a trickle-down effect to Division II, where you have some kids that would be playing at a high level Division I, because the roster size now is, I think, 9, maybe 10 ish.
I think 9 is most. I think 9 is most of them. I think maybe a couple conferences might have even gone to 8, which is crazy.
So are you seeing that trickle down effect and giving you more of a recruiting pool to look at?
So I think it's not fully taken effect yet, but it's started to. Yeah, you're already kind of, you're seeing just. Ultimately, there's just spots are shrinking, right? You do the numbers on that. You guys probably know how many Division I programs there are, but if you take X amount of spots away times that many schools, where are they going to go? They got to play somewhere. And then the same thing, you look, you trickle down to our level, and okay, well, there's some of those kids will find places in our level, and then, okay, well, then kids who would normally be looking to play at our level, where do they go? It's a trickle down, and ultimately it's going to affect the junior golfers. There's not going to be as many spots. So,
it leaves them kind of in limbo, right? Where do you go? And I think ultimately, it's good for the game. I think it's good for the collegiate level golf. I think the portal's a whole nother discussion, and how that impacts kids 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in college now. But that's a whole nother process. As you get into the recruiting process, you identify a kid, are these the types of things that are going through your mind when you start recruiting them, and how the roster limits impact you?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but like I said, we don't fully have limits. We have kind of a ballpark of where we're trying to stay in. But yeah, you're looking at a lot of different things. You're looking at, instead of just probably before, you have coaches had systems of, okay, let's look through these junior rankings. We know the big tours we want to, or the big junior tours we want to, look at and identify certain tournaments where how are kids performing. And then, well, now you're going, okay, well, now I got to look at how my kids are playing in the current season. I got to look at junior college. I got to look at transfer portal, other divisions. You have a lot of different things now where you can find players. And yeah, it's a little bit crazy, just how much it's impacted, where we are right now.
And what are some things families we strive here on our show? We strive to bring educational concepts, thoughts, visions for parents, because as we talked about before, like as a parent who didn't play golf growing up, I played the big 3. I went to college. I played football. My wife she was a cheerleader at Wake Forest. We've done the sports, but we didn't play golf. So like, this whole process is just mind-boggling of how you get to the collegiate level. Talk to us about some things that parents of junior golfers should think about and consider when they're looking at a Division II program like a Florida Southern.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you want to look at location, right? Do you want to send your child across the country, or are you looking to move closer to where you're sending your child? It all depends on the family dynamic of how many kids and all that. But yeah, location is key. I think the academics certainly have to be up there as well. That's a big thing for us here. We strive to have a strong GPA for our team, and we have a really high education here at Florida Southern with the business school we have, and just so many different programs they've added over the years. But academics, location, weather, and then kind of history, and then like a specific to ours, they have to match kind of the type of player we're looking for, the scores they can shoot. But the thing is, there's different levels to it, and there's parents, all they can do is really try to get their kids playing as many tournaments as they can. Not necessarily has to be the biggest or the most expensive, but ultimately the coaches are going to recruit these kids off the scores, and if they can relate to kind of where they're shooting them, not necessarily I'm looking for a lot of times finish and field size. If the kid shoots certain scores, they tell you most of the story. What place and how big was the field tells you a little bit about it too. And we know down here where we are, the junior scores tend to be a little bit lower most of the time just because the weather's probably better. There are obviously obviously a lot of talent down here as well, but that's one thing too. You got to consider where these kids playing most of their golf. What's the weather like? What time of year? That can play into it. Sometimes a kid could shoot a 73 and it's an amazing score. If it's tough weather and cold, and then that same 73 in a different tournament at a different place might be not as impressive. There's endless layers to it, which is exciting to kind of
it paints the picture, right? And I think you're right. The score, I chuckled when you said the score because it is funny. I think it was last year or the year before, my son in early January decided he worked all off season. He was like, I want to go down and play an event in Florida. Great. We take care of you. If that's what you want to do, we'll go do it. And it was immediately noticeable. The kids that were from Florida and from Georgia and from the Carolinas had a distinct advantage over the kids that were coming down from New York and Pennsylvania. And you could see the Northeast kids adjusting to like, well, wait a minute, it's 75 degrees and sunny. Not only that, but you have the Bermuda grass and you haven't been outside in months. So those things are really interesting to see them come into play. When you think about the recruiting process for some of your kids, some of your student athletes, but what you're looking for, a lot of the recruiting process is an ownership thing, right? And what I mean is Coach Brian Richey can't get out, and I think you have one assistant coach, maybe two. You can't get out and cover the entire country and see all of these kids play. So a little bit of the recruiting process is actually on the kids identifying your school, your program first, right?
Correct. I actually don't have an assistant right now. Okay. So yeah, a lot of it was, when I took over full-time in June, a lot of it was, all through the spring last year, I was the interim. I was trying to answer a lot of the emails and try to keep a few relationships going, but ultimately we didn't know who the coach was going to be. So I was still kind of just replying to kids based on the program, like no matter who it is, this is where you want to be type stuff. But yeah, when I started in June, my immediate, response was, okay, well, luckily I didn't need to bring anybody in for this fall. We already had the 3 kids set, but going into this 26 class, I was like, I got to replace 3 fifth years. I got to refill this roster. So it was, my first kind of focus was, okay, let's browse through the kids that I have been in communication already with and kind of let's see where they're at right now with their process and their ability and what kind of numbers are they shooting. So that, like you said, my first kind of goal was, okay, well, I've already have something to work with here. I've been talking to a few kids and we have, an influx of messages, but it's a long process for sure.
And that influx of messages, that's a whole nother conversation. And we get into this, and through your relationship with some of the owners over at P3 Recruits, we're working with them. But no matter who you talk to in the world of junior golf, when you start talking about what comes next at that next level for colleges, coaches consistently say, send those emails. I think there's a disbelief in the junior golf community that those emails actually work. But I also, on the flip side of that, have to believe that like coaches like yourself or coaches like Brian Craig over at P3 Recruits wouldn't be telling these kids to do this if it didn't work. So I think there's a misconception that their kids should be. Some kids think maybe I shouldn't be sending those emails, but in reality they should be. If that sounds right.
I mean, here it ultimately comes down to like from the kid's point of view, right? You have to send one to start, right? You send the resume, you send an intro. Yes. Do I get a lot of them? Of course. Are there ones, that, painfully, like I hate to say this, I just don't have the time to respond to, but I do try to read them all, at least read the beginning of them all. And as soon as I see some scores to start with, that's where I kind of make my decision. Okay. If it's what we like, then, they're going to get a response and, hey, let's keep this going. And, if I try to respond to all of them, but like sometimes like you get behind, you're also trying to coach the team, also trying to be an employee of the college as well. So there's a lot of different things. So I do my best. It's certainly, it's something that's very new to me and very, very tasking. But like you said, you have to send them. If you're on the kid side, you may not always get a response, or you might not get the response right away. But, there are periods of time where I will do a focus a few days. So like, okay, I got to catch up on this. I got to get through this stuff and kind of get organized with it. But, it's not a day-to-day thing where I have 7 hours a day to sit there and respond to all of them. That's the challenge on my side of it. But yes, if the kid never sends an email, like the old cliche, the answer is always no unless you ask.
Answer's always no if you never ask. And a lot of you talked about this earlier. Go ahead, sorry, Coach.
I was gonna say, and then the other part of it is maybe they're not the right fit for us, but maybe with certain contexts coaches have, they can, hey, well, I know this is an area you may want to focus, level wise, or hey, this isn't the right fit for us, but stay in touch. You never know. It's stuff like it's just you try to do your best and you try to be honest with everybody. That's all you can do.
I think I think that's spot on.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about it there, a little bit about it earlier. Coach Craig from P3 Recruits mentioned it before. A lot of this recruiting process is similar to the job market, where it's who you know. To your point earlier, right? Yeah. You might get an email from a kid, and it's just not where you're at right now or what you're looking for right now. But you might know, hey, Jimmy, John, and Joe, who coach at the University of Nowheresville, they could really use a player like you, right? And you could redirect them in that manner. So working with someone like a P3 Recruits, they're going to help identify a group of schools that these kids should be reaching out to. When they do that, I think one of the things I'd like to hear from you, we talked about the emails. You want a personalized email, right? You don't want a blind carbon copy. Like, you want them to put some work into reaching out to Coach Richey, right?
My biggest pet peeve is, and I'm only not quite a year in, but when you open the email and you see it's sent to 185 coaches at once. Hey, coach, comma.
So they don't even blind copy it. They just send it to
not
everybody.
Even going to each one and saying, I've had multiple where I've had Coach Richey. They've changed the name, and then throughout the paragraph, they forgot that was the last school and it was a different school. And my response is, I do respond to those because my response is always, this is not blank, whatever school they've listed, and I send it back. Like, nothing else, just do your, like, hey, you made a mistake. You need to
own up to it. Yeah. Has that ever worked out for you where somebody sent it to the wrong one and you're like, well, actually, this kid can play?
So far, not.
No.
But yeah,
you never know.
I get it. If the kids are trying to do, they're trying to do whatever they can to get their name to as many coaches. So, like, I understand the mistake. I have a little fun with it, and I'm just, hey, this is not so-and-so.
That's fair. That's fair. Coach, we got a couple more things we want to get into with you before we, I know you're busy. You got a lot going on, but what do you got going on? You guys are just kicking off I'll say the winter, but you got to be getting ready for the season, right?
Yeah. So our home tournament, the Matlock at our home club, is our first one of the spring, which has always kind of been the same. It's a big tournament. It's a really good golf course. Weather is usually pretty good, but you never know. I feel like when I was here playing as a player, we had frost delays a couple times, and then last year it was like 75, 80 degrees, perfect weather. So you never know. But yeah, we're gonna. We got a month or so to go, so we're going to spread qualifying out, probably do a couple rounds a week for these next 4 weeks and kind of see where everybody is. But yeah, we had kind of started a couple practices last week, and guys are giving guys a few days to kind of get back into the swing of things. We're starting workouts, so getting everybody's new class schedules acclimated. But yeah, it's like I said, it was cold this morning, but it's but usually by noon, even if it's really cold, worst case, we're usually at least in the mid 50s.
Ready to go. That's great golf weather.
Perfect. I have shorts on, even though I have a hoodie. So that's usually my winter. Every now and then, I think there's a couple of days later this week, I'll need long pants because it's going to be a high of 55 one of the days. But most of the time, it's like 50 in the morning and 70 in the afternoon. So it's perfect shorts and a hoodie. And then by midday, you take the hoodie off. You're good.
Take the hoodie off. You're ready for the golf course. Coach, talk to us about, actually, you just brought a good conversation piece up. As your team gets ready for the tournament, you talked about the qualifying. A lot of these kids, a lot of these junior golfers coming from high schools, they're the man. They're the top dog in their school, even if they're the second player in their school. When you get to a school like Florida Southern and you talk about qualifying to play in the tournament, talk to us about what that looks like. Paint a picture for what some of these kids could be looking at as they make that jump.
So yeah, that's a great question, and I'm excited to share a little bit about that. So, starting our first qualifier of the fall, granted it's September, so it's warm weather. Our courses play a little bit easier, just that time of year, ball going
Yeah.
farther. Well, we had incoming freshman, shoot 63, 64 in his first two rounds of qualifying and go on to shoot
Okay.
30 under for the first 7 rounds. And I was
Well,
like,
hello to you, sir.
well, hello to you. Welcome here. But no, it was the first qualifier was we had 5 guys really go out. We did 7 rounds. I like the first one of the fall and the first one of the spring. I like to do a bigger one because we have more time, gives them more kind of tournament reps. I treat these qualifiers as a competition round. It counts against your scoring average that we evaluate throughout the year. And it just gives them, reps. We call it, gives them tournament reps against their teammates. But to answer your question, so we're very blessed right now with our current roster. We have 9 great players, and they all feel like, and we've talked about this in our team meetings, like if they get in our top 5, they feel like they've earned their way in, and they've done an enormous job just to get in the lineup. So not that I want them to relax when they're at the tournament, but hey, you're in this 5, then you've done something. That's a great place for us to be. So hopefully we can keep that going forward. I know you're always going to have different years, with different rebuilds and stuff. But yeah, we're I'm excited to watch it. That's why I mentioned I'm really excited for this spring, just because I feel like we can plug anybody in and they're going to do just fine. So,
and Coach, you and I talked earlier about your journey to college golf. You self-identified that you were a late bloomer in your development as a player. Talk to us about how that process made you feel, and what words of encouragement could you give to a junior golfer that maybe hasn't reached the potential they want to be at this point?
for sure, just to summarize it, everybody goes at their own pace. You run your own race. Yeah, for me, I was much more into every other sport besides golf growing up. So I kind of solely focused. I thought if you asked me when I was 10 or 12, I'd say if I'm playing anything professional, it's going to be baseball.
Yeah.
I was, doing all that. So when I kind of got into high school, and my dad was a high school football coach. So, at Lakeland High, which is a really good program. So you would have thought, if anything, I'm probably playing one of those 2 sports. But yeah, I kind of caught the golf bug going into high school. And I think part of it was the individual aspect to it, where it's all on you. You don't have to rely on anybody else. If the game's on the line and you're the 7th next guy at the plate, you can't control. You're just in the dugout hoping that you get a chance.
You get a shot. Yeah.
Golf, you're in. Like, all of it's you. You can't sub. You got to figure it out. So I think I like that aspect of it. But yeah, I played a bunch of local tournaments, and we didn't even have the FJT. FJT started the year after I went into college, which would have been great because we could have played that a bunch with that being around here. We had the Greater Tampa Junior Golf Association, which I don't know if it's even still going on. But yeah, I didn't play much. I played the Future Masters was my biggest tournament. My dad actually attended Florida Southern just as a student, and it's in the town I lived in. And I was a good local player, like high school player of the year and stuff like that. So luckily the coach was like, offer you a spot. My grades were great. I had a full ride academically and stuff. So I just needed somewhere to play. I said, sure, Florida Southern, great. He's like, you play your way, you can play your way into some scholarship. You work hard. He's like, everybody gets their chance. So even if you're not on scholarship, you qualify, you'll earn it. So I actually won the first qualifier my freshman year to get in the lineup. But I didn't play great in the tournament. It took me a few years to kind of figure out the traveling. I was really good at the courses we qualified on because I had played them a bunch growing up. And I was from here. So not that I was a member at them, but I was like, I'd played them enough that
you had the advantage, home course advantage.
I could qualify. So, but yeah, long story short, it took me, I got injured end of my first year. So I was kind of out my second year with injury. And then that happened to be a blessing because I got a redshirt year, not planned, but just towards the end of year 4, not really sure what I'm doing. I'm close to graduating. Coach was like, if you'd like to come back for a 5th year, we'd love to have you. And I earned, some more 4th and 5th years. I got some scholarship money for golf, and
nice.
Happened to be my best year was my 5th year. And it kind of gave me the inkling to kind of try to play professionally. And then 15 years later, after playing, all over the world, and, so yeah, everybody runs their own race. I would tell the kids just to keep at it. And there is, hopefully a place for everyone if they want to play and they're good enough. I hate to say there's a place for everyone, but there's junior college level, there's D3, there's NAIA, there's all kinds of levels. And if you're persistent enough and can shoot some decent scores, somebody will give you a chance. You just kind of have to find that right fit. And then once you get a chance, it's up to you to prove it. Work as hard as you can. You got facilities, you can go get it. So it's all about the mind, at that point. But
I love that. I love that part of it. Yeah, I love that part of it. It's all about the mind. It's just you, the club, the ball, and the course. It doesn't matter what the playing partners are doing. It doesn't matter anything else, really. It's just that, to your point, of the individualistic part of the sport. It's just you, right?
The greatest thing about golf. Nobody can deny you based on your size or your, other sports. You get to that high level and it's, well, we're not going to.
He's not big enough. He's not fast enough.
We're not going to call him up from AAA because he doesn't throw it hard enough or he's not big enough. But it's like in golf, if you shoot scores, somebody will see the scores in the collegiate level and give you a chance. At the professional level, same thing. If you shoot the scores, you earned it. So,
Coach, before we let you go, let's talk about the scores one more time. Hypothetically, a kid starts to they have a first part of their season where it's a little bit rough, and then they have a part where they run off 2 or 3 tournaments in a row that are really good. Should they update you? Should they wait until the end of a season to update you? How frequently do you want to hear from those student athletes?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of the time, if the kid, when we first talked in the email, I'll give, if they're kind of in the range of what we're looking for, or they're close enough for me to monitor, I'll always say update me periodically with your scores. Obviously, they don't need to do it every time they play or every tournament, but maybe let's say it's a busy season and they play 2 or 3 in a month. Once a month. Obviously, if they have a great finish, they should update as many coaches as they can because that's when they need to capitalize on. Hey, look at this great tournament I played. That's life. Hey, look what I did, but I would say even the bad stuff. Hey, coach, played this, you don't need to say much because the scores are going to say
scores will tell
most
you,
of what it, but they could say, hey, this is what I shot, a little, if they go too much rambling or too much about trying to kind of quantify the whole thing. Look, I know everyone has bad tournaments like that. It's but hey, if you try to hide them, that's a little bit different too, but being honest, that's the only thing we ask, and everybody ultimately, honesty is what helps develop the relationship. And that's ultimately what gets you a spot is, can you connect with the coach with basically your scores, your academic goals, your kind of your mindset? Do you fit with the culture? If, that stems with the honesty,
Yeah. Coach Brian Richey, head coach at Florida Southern College. Before we let you go, we'd like to end the segment with a little bit of a rapid fire. So we're going to hit you with a couple questions. Okay. What's the favorite course you've ever played at or coached at?
I would still say Pumpkin Ridge in Portland, Oregon was my favorite course I've played. Got to play on the Korn Ferry Tour 4 or 5 years. It's where Tiger had his famous comeback against Steve Scott to win the U.S. Amateur. It's just amazing. Perfect weather, great place, peaceful, deer running around. Doesn't fit anybody's game. You could hit it long or short and still play it. It was just a perfect course. I loved it. Nice.
One thing you wish all incoming freshmen knew?
Wish all incoming freshmen knew. We all know that they're the best player from where they've come from, but be ready to go and be ready to earn it.
Love that. And we talked about that, right? I think all these kids, they're the best on the team that they're on. And then when you get into a group where there's a bunch of alphas, there's a lot going on there. Favorite motivational quote that reflects you or your team?
Favorite motivational quote? I'm big on, this isn't really anybody famous. I just like to say, earn everything.
Earn everything. I love it. There's no denying it, right? If you shoot the scores, you earned it, right? Nobody did it for you. You earned it. If you get into play college golf, you earned it because you did all the things you had to do that. Coach Brian Richey, thank you for joining the GSD Golf Podcast. It's been a great conversation. We hope we can have you on again during the season, see how things are going.
Would love to. Anytime. Let me know. I'll come back on.
Thanks, Coach. Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
GSD Golf Community, Coach Brian Richey from Florida Southern College, head coach. They're located in Lakewood, Florida. Division II program, an esteemed Division II program, 13 national championships in the school's history for golf. They are the go-to when it comes to Division II level golf. Coach Richey knows what it takes to play at that level, knows what it takes to play at the highest of levels. He had spent 15 years in the professional ranks. As you heard him talking a little bit about his time on the Korn Ferry Tour. But he shared so much information about what it takes to go from a high school golfer to a college golfer, and the recruiting process and the qualifiers within the team, and then what comes next from there. So this is just the start of what season 4 is going to bring you on the GSD Golf Podcast. If you're not following the GSD Golf Podcast yet, make sure you click that like or subscribe or follow button. Check out the podcast. Check out seasons 1, 2, and 3 before. Get yourself caught up. But we just kicked off season 4, and we're looking to bring you better and bigger things in 2026. Let's make 2026 a season to remember. Let's go.